I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
Well, it's December, and Christmas is 2 weeks from today. So you have 14 days to buy me a Christmas present. There's a requirement of membership. Yeah, we're going to write. Just kidding, of course. So, and it's starting to look like Christmas, isn't it? With the lights and all the food, and we're thinking about how much food we're going to pack away over the winter, and all these amazing things that happen at Christmas time, and probably for you, as for me, we think about times in the past, Christmases in the past at this time, and reflect on the friends that we've had and the things that we've done. And a friend of mine told me this story about a time when her children were in a Christmas pageant that was called the best Christmas pageant ever. And her daughter played Mary, while two of her sons were shepherds, and the youngest boy played the wise man, one of the wise men. And this was their moment to shine. The 5-year-old shepherd had practiced his line over and over again. We found the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes. But during the pageant, he got a little nervous, and he said, we found the baby wrapped up in wrinkly clothes. And then, of course, his 4-year-old sister, playing Mary, yelled, not wrinkly clothes, silly. They're dirty, rotten clothes, which caused a wrestling match to break out between Mary and the shepherd, which eventually was stopped by an angel who bent over to help and broke her halo, and one of her wings fell off. And my friend said that she was sitting in the front row, and she slouched down in her chair when Mary dropped the doll, representing Jesus, and it went bouncing down the aisle, crying, Mama, Mama. And Mary ran down the aisle and grabbed the doll, wrapped it back up, and held it tightly until the wise men arrived. Her youngest son then stepped forward, wearing a bathrobe and a paper crown, and he knelt at the manger and he announced, we're 3 wise guys, and we bring gifts of gold, common sense, and fur. The congregation dissolved into laughter, and the pageant received a standing ovation. Well, this might not exactly have felt like a journey to peace for this mother. But if we look close, we might find ourselves in this story. Allegorically, there are times when we get caught up in the busyness and the frenzy of life, and perhaps even the frenzy of the holiday season, the Christmas season, and we forget about the idea of Christmas. We forget about the idea of the sacredness of the time that we're celebrating. Symbolically, we can drop the baby Jesus on its head when we forget our Christ nature, when we find ourselves going off on tangents, right? Losing it, getting crazy, getting freaked out, becoming afraid, and tumbling down the aisles of our life, and we forget about the peace that this season is to bring. Ever happened to you? For many of us, the Christmas season isn't really one of those times of year that provide deep feelings of peace and calmness. We frantically go about our Christmas routines, forgetting what the season is about, forgetting that we're that what we're working towards in the Christmas season is becoming that Christ self, right? And we forget. I love the analogy of dropping the baby Jesus on his head. It's like we forget everything that we've been taught. And it's not a bad thing. It just happens to us, right? Because we are human beings and we freak out from time to time. But what we get to remember is to breathe and to bring ourselves back to this moment. But today is dedicated to really looking at how can we do that? What are some of the practices that we can embrace and embody to help us remember when that second shoe falls? How can we sing that song of peace in our hearts and really live it? How can we really believe it? How can we really sing it? How can we celebrate it in what often seems like a chaotic world? And I really think this is one of the practices that we get to practice, right, as a way of bringing love and light and peace into this world. We get to be the example as we work through our own stuff. And so we're going to start today again with this affirmation. This wasn't the real kids, but I think I love this bunch of kids and the diversity of them, and so beautiful. So our affirmation today is, I open my heart and hear and sing the song of peace within. And we know that the power of affirmations is repeating them because we are conditioning our mind, our body, our spirit, that crazy part of us into remembering that we are peace, that we get to hear the song of peace in our hearts and wherever we are, and that we get to sing the song of peace in our daily lives. So let's affirm this together. I open my heart and hear and sing the song of peace within. Now, you might remember the story from the Bible of the shepherds who the angels of God came to. And the scripture says, the angels were keeping watch over their flock by night when the angels of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord glowed about them, and they were terrified. And the angel said, do not be afraid, for you see, I bring good news of great joy. Now, I don't know about you, but I think if an angel appeared to me with that kind of clarity, it might have freaked me out too. Right? But can you imagine what that would be like to have an angel actually show up in your life and say, be peace, be at peace. And so what we get to do is to really imagine that this is happening. That when we get in that place of craziness, for lack of a better term that I can come up with in this moment, is just to take a deep breath and go, remember? Because the angels are all around us all the time, right? Because we know as soon as we go there that there's a different way, don't we? And the gift of this teaching is that we can short-circuit ourselves when we feel that energy coming and that explosion about to happen. So many times we go through life expecting the worst. It's interesting. Watch how you talk, right? Watch how you respond to things in your life, and notice if somebody says something positive, do you respond with something negative? Are you looking to short-circuit the positiveness? And we all do it because we're human. And the trick is, the message is to recognize it and say, stop. I don't have to come from that short circuit, limited, negative thinking. What happened to me recently, I got a letter in the mail that looked like this, right? And I went out to my mailbox and I took the mail out, and it's like, you recognize those letters, right? It says IRS on it. And I'm like, I'd say, oh my God, here, but that's not what I said there. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh. And so, between the 200 steps from my mailbox to my house, I thought of 1,000 things that this letter is probably got to say, right? I imagined that I was facing a penalty. I imagined that I was facing an audit, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I really made that trek quickly as my mind is going weighing all this crazy stuff that our minds do. And I got inside the house and I opened the letter, and it was just the IRS telling me that they had received my information, that I had, I had made a mistake in my taxes back in 2021, and they were just saying, we got your check, everything is cool, right? And look at the crazy path I took, right? And isn't that what we do? We struggle so much with life about stuff that's not even true. And I think it's a lot of it because we're conditioned as human beings to have a negativity bias, right? Our minds are Velcro to negative things and Teflon to good things, right? For some reason, we want to hang on to the bad stuff, to the negative stuff, to the hurtful stuff, and we forget just to let it go. And we hang on to the bad stuff and don't even recognize the good stuff. We let that just slip away, letting ourselves get freaked out. I love this phrase from Job 3:25. It's like, what I feared has come upon me, right? Have you ever felt that? It's like, oh, I just knew it, doggone it. All that stuff that I feared is finally here. I mean, it's here. Or, and why is that the case? Well, because we know the law of mind action said that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. What we think about manifests for us, because we are manifestors and womanifestors, and we create our reality, right, based on what we think about. Right? So much, the whole basic unity philosophy can really be boiled down into a couple sentences, and it's this: thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. It's really, how can we change our thoughts so that we change our experience? Just breathe into that. Everything you know about unity is right there. It's all about changing our consciousness so that we can be present in our Christness, right? In our peacefulness, in the love essence of who we are. Think about how much time we waste worrying about stuff. And it's, I saw some statistics somewhere about this. I don't remember exactly what they were. But the amount of time that we spend worrying about stuff that never happens far and exceeds the amount of time that things actually happen that way. And yet we spend a lot of our time worrying and fretting over this is going to happen. Oh, well, that's going to happen if I say this, or if I do that, or if I try something new. For God's sake, something's going to happen. I'm going to fall off the end of the earth. I'm going to freak out. If we could just breathe and be present to what is. I found that I can be much more focused if I come from a place of being centered as opposed to being fearful, right? Science is showing that when we are feeling fearful, we breathe into our upper lungs, which feeds our fight or flight part of us, and we don't make the best decisions there. Ever notice? When we are freaking out, we do not make the best decisions. We make it when we're breathing down here, relaxing, being present. So it's time to change our thinking. It's time to change our lives. By affirming, I open my heart, say it with me, I open my heart and hear and sing the song of peace within. Our spiritual journey is about learning to find peace in the middle of everyday life, in the middle of the circumstances that happen to us. However chaotic they might seem to be, we get to find peace in it. Doesn't that sound great? Does your ego like that idea? Probably not. Your Christ self does, but your ego's like, no, man. When I'm pissed off, I got to show somebody. I got to tell somebody, right? But our spiritual journey is about learning to find peace in the midst of everyday life, recognizing that heaven is here. You know, we have the choice to create heaven or hell in every moment. So what will you choose? Heaven or hell? Hell is right here too if we choose it. And yes, life is constantly providing us with opportunities to experience our fullness. You know, and if we can look at life that way and realize that this moment, for most of us, I imagine we're pretty peaceful. But there will come a moment, sometime in the near future, most likely, where we'll be tested, where you'll be tested. And so how can you get into that peaceful place? You know, Jesus often talked about how we can find peace in the world. And I think it's kind of interesting that was a lot of his message, but it wasn't the way that it was interpreted. It's not the way that a lot of Christian spiritual paths see that. They kind of forgot that message and many of Jesus' messages, but that's a whole nother talk for many more Sundays. So I love the example of Mary and Joseph. Can you imagine being them and out of the blue to Mary, who is a virgin, so they say, all of a sudden she's having a baby, right? And, you know, God wakes her up in the middle of the night and says, okay, Mary, it's time. I'd love to know what that time was like. Somebody should make a movie about that. But can you imagine what they had to deal with? Being unmarried and having Mary be pregnant back in those days? Can you imagine what they must have dealt with? Reminds me kind of a song somewhere, but I don't think I'm going to go there. But, you know, and look what they had to go through. They had to go, they went into Bethlehem looking for a place to have this baby, and they couldn't find any. But yet, as far as we know, they were calm and collected, and even, you know, found a barn, a stable to have the baby in. Wow, how would that feel for you moms, right? To have that baby on a pile of hay, right? In a manger with animals next to you. But from what we know, they handled it beautifully, as the story is written. And it's a message for us to think about, how do we handle the things in our lives that don't always go the way that we would like them to go? There's a king that I think exemplifies this idea of choosing peace. Now, this king offered a prize to the artist that would paint a picture that best describes peace. And many artists showed up because they wanted the king to choose their picture. So they painted these pictures, but there were only two that the king really liked, and he had to choose between them. The first one was a calm lake that was a perfect mirror of the mountains behind it. And above the mountains were beautiful blue sky with white puffy clouds. And everyone who saw this picture thought for sure this is the picture the king's going to choose. And the other choice was a picture of mountains too, but they were rugged and steep and bare, and above was an angry sky from which rain fell and lightning streaked across the sky. And down the mountain there was a stream, a waterfall. And this didn't look peaceful at all. And next to the waterfall was a tiny bush. And a crack in a rock, there was a mother bird who had built her nest. And this was the picture that the king chose, because he said, this is a perfect picture of peace. And the king explained, peace does not mean to be in a peaceful place where there is no noise or trouble or hard work or some dream of tranquility. Peace means to be in the midst of all of these things and still be calm in your heart, finding the harmony of life within. It's only then that we come to a deeper understanding of the ways of peace. I think this is the meaning that Jesus talked about when he talked about peace to us. Remember the story of him being on the sea, and the storm is raging and the waves are exploding and the disciples are scared. And Jesus holds up his hands and says, what? Peace, be still. But in the story, it says that the ocean flattened, right? And it was calm. But I believe what really happened was that the disciples went, oh, we can have peace in the middle of this. We can breathe. We can let ourselves go with the storm, with the rocking of the boat, with the waves of the ocean, and just be there. You know, peace isn't necessarily going apart a while and meditating. Peace isn't necessarily about going to the mountains or the woods or to the ocean and absorbing the beauty of it. Peace is being able to be still in the midst of what appears to be a turmoil, in the midst of the ocean, in the midst of a storm. To breathe in, to call upon that Christ presence, that love presence, that God presence, that essence within us. You know, peace is a state of consciousness. And it's a state of consciousness that we can be a part of, and not necessarily by just saying, I'm going to do that from now on. I'm just making a choice that I'm always going to be peaceful. I think that's a good start, but I think the way that we really become this peace is by practicing it. You know, and even, you know, when we're in a restaurant, or when we're with friends, or when we're out doing something, or even when we get those moments of zing moments. You ever get those? That kind of goes zingo, and you kind of get your attention, and you're like, ooh, I gotta do something. I gotta say something. I gotta make something happen. Just to go, oh wow, And just because it's kind of like, it's like a wave or a storm cloud. You ever have those experiences in your life where a storm cloud comes over a situation and there's like, the hair sticking up on end, and you're like, ah! Just to realize it's just a storm that's passing. And just to let it go. Let it work itself out. So I've got a couple suggestions on how to practice being in this peaceful place. And the first one is to light a candle. And anybody still have real candles? Right? Of course, we're also cautious now. We all have these electric ones, but you don't get the same kind of feeling from an electric candle, right? From a fire candle, yeah. So get a fire candle, maybe with a candle that's got a nice scent to it, right? And set it down and light it, and give yourself the opportunity just to be present to it. You know, practicing peace takes effort. It takes effort to calm ourselves down and to relax. And so light this candle, set it in front of you, and just be with it. And I like to look at the flame of a candle and imagine that I'm observing my Christ self, right? That light, to really get into that light and breathe into that light. And let the scent of that candle be absorbed by you and just be present to it. Might seem silly to some of our minds that are like, but yeah, I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to make this happen and I got to do that. Forget that. Being peaceful takes work. And this is all about thoughts held in mind, produce after their kind. What we think about manifests itself. So just manifest being peaceful. Something else we can do is take time to meditate and pray. And I have to admit, I have a challenge with that. I have an active mind, and I've had to really work at giving myself the time to pray and meditate. And I think, you've heard me say, praying to me is everything we do. Thinking, doing, all of that. And so that to me is about being present. One way of praying, just to be present in the moment, experience what's going on, feel the feeling, feel the energy in the room, feel what your heart is saying, feel what your body is feeling, and just let yourself experience that. And then in the same way, many of us can find it difficult to meditate because the mind is thinking. And again, it's about practicing. If you can't just sit and meditate, then walk and meditate. Walk in your favorite place and just allow yourself to be present, to be there, to listen, to feel. And, sometimes reading scripture or reading a sacred text helps us to be calm. This is really all about being calm and focusing the mind, allowing yourself to be that way, to be calm, to be peaceful. Another thing we can do is, especially this Christmas season, is to do something that represents Christmas to you. Decorate your tree. Have a glass of wine and listen to Christmas carols. But just take time to be present, absorb what's happening, to just be in the moment. And the next thing we can do is and this goes back to what I said a few moments ago about take the journey to peace and just practice it wherever you are. Say, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying this moment. I'm just going to be peaceful. I'm reminding myself to be peaceful. This is a practice that we get to do to be in the moment. I open my heart and hear and sing the song of peace within. Say that with me. I open my heart and hear and sing the song of peace within. And I invite you to close your eyes. Let's be peaceful right now. Breathing in. Breathing into this sacred place of peace. Allow your breath to be deep. As you breathe out, let go of anything other than peace. Breathing in peace and letting go. Imagine that this peace is moving through your body like a gentle wave, touching your mind, relaxing your thoughts. Every muscle and tendon relaxes. From toe to head and head to toe. Peace. Jesus said, "Peace I give to you." In the same way, the Christ essence within you says, "Peace I give to you." The gift of peace. Moving through every space, every thought, every feeling. Remember this time. Remember that your essence is peace. Remember, peace is something that you can take a hold of wherever you are. Breathing in, breathing out. Peace. And let's just take a couple of moments to relax into this peace. In the silence. remember this. Breathing in and breathing out. Gently begin to bring your awareness back to this moment, this peaceful moment. And so it is. Peace. All right. Well, at this time, I invite you to prepare your love offerings and your joyful gifts and your peaceful gifts that you are getting to share with Unity on Maui. Wow, are we so blessed to have this amazing place? Are we so blessed to have this incredible teaching that we have, this practical spirituality that we get to apply in our lives, right? Isn't it always easy and fun to put these practices into place? Right? But isn't that what life is about? Right? It's challenging sometimes, but I've noticed, maybe you've noticed too, that as we kind of break open this onion of truth, of experience, of life, we sort of peel off the layers of the onion, and slowly we become more focused, more centered, more peaceful, more joyful, more loving. Wow, I am just so grateful for this teaching that Charles and Myrtle Fillmore started over 100 years ago. And it was mind-blowing in those days. And people were like, wow, this stuff is amazing. It still is. And it's funny that, I believe that Charles Fillmore gathered these truths from other spiritual places, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Christianity and Judaism, and pulled them all together and created these great practical teachings that we get to practice. And one of them is prosperity, knowing that as we give, we receive. And I know that when I participate in my life by giving, I open myself up to receive. It's almost like, I've heard some people say, well, I can't really give because I don't have anything. And it's like, really? You don't have anything? You don't have $1? You don't have 50 cents? You don't have something that you can give? Because giving opens us up to experiencing more. If we want to experience prosperity, we get to be a part of this journey of life and participate in it. So thank you for your gifts. May they be big, may they be small. And so as we hold our gifts in this amazing gratitude, let's pray and affirm our prosperity blessing affirmation by saying it together. Together. Through a grateful, giving heart, my mind and life overflow with the abundance of God's all-providing, infinite supply. And so it is. Amen. All right, loving Spirit, thank you for these gifts that have come to us in love. We hold them, we bless them, we give thanks for them. And know that they're moving through this ministry out into the world. And we behold a world that's filled with love, with light, with prosperity, and with peace. And so it is. Namaste. All right, let's see. Well, if you would like to see something fresh up on the platform, besides Robin and John and I, you can offer, and we are fresh, I'll tell you, all right?
Speak for yourself.
We invite you to bring flowers on a Sunday morning to sparkle us up and give us life and joy. And there's a sign-up sheet in the back there, and you find a line, put a date on it that you'd like to bring, and tell me what you'd like us to honor on that day, and we'll be really happy to celebrate that with you. And next Sunday, due to high demand for a new member class, I'm going to have a new member class next Sunday, December 17th. I apologize, it's been bumped around a little bit because of all the busyness of Christmas and the holidays, and we have a board meeting today, and things happen. So it's going to be next week at 12:30, and you can come. Someone asked me, can I just come? And of course, you can just come, and I say it's a class, but really it's just a discussion of what Unity believes in. You can ask me all kinds of questions about what Unity is and why we study this or why we study that or why are we metaphysical and what does that mean. And we'll explain all that. And then if you think that's all fun, then you can decide to become a member of Unity on Maui. And to me, that just means that you're saying, my spirituality is important to me. I want to be part of this community that will love me, cherish me, and help me to be the best version of my higher self that I can be. So that'll be happening next Sunday. And, this is great news. Okay, as you have heard before, on Christmas Eve, we're going to be at the Pro Arts Playhouse in Kihei. And we met with them this week, had a joyful meeting with them, planning our service, and it's going to be so much fun. And they're such a great bunch of people. Thank you, Bob, for being there and helping us out, and Robin and John, and who else was there? I guess there's a bunch of their people. Anyway, it's going to be great, and I told you before that you're going to need reservations. Forget that. We're just going for it. Yeah. We're going to affirm that we have enough seats. All you have to do is show up. It's first come, first serve for seats. At 7:30. We changed the time till 7:30 because they said they have a show before us, and they wanted us to have plenty of time to get set up. So it is at 7:30 Christmas Eve day, and there will not be a Sunday service here Christmas Eve morning. So if you show up, it's on you. Whoever shows up first is doing the service on Christmas Eve morning. So there will not be a service on Christmas Eve morning. And my talk is titled, Awaken Your Spiritual Brilliance. And we'll look at how we can do that, because it's all about birthing that Christ self, our spiritual essence, and bringing that forward and living that. So that'll be fun. Christmas Eve, don't forget. Write it in your calendars. Next week, my talk is titled Opening to Divine Love at Christmas. And it's, again, following the Advent trend, and next Sunday is about love. And so we're going to look at what can I do to be more loving? Today we talked about being peaceful. Next Sunday we're going to talk about how can we be more loving, which I think is really important today in this world that we live, to be more loving. So that's happening next Sunday at 10 o'clock right here. And my walk your talk is back there. It's a summary of everything that I talked about today. And you can, if somebody calls you tomorrow and says, "Hey, what did they talk about at that Unity Church?" Well, you can read right from this and remember it yourself. So that's in the back. And I think, what color is it today? Yellow. Okay. Marlene's got a copy right there. Okay, I think that brings us to the prayer for protection. So why don't we stand, form a circle, and take a deep breath and breathe in. You don't have to hold hands just yet, but it's good to, unless you want to use your hand holding for capturing the distance between you and getting close together. All right, when everybody's ready, are we ready? Okay, together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And one more thing just crossed my mind. If you want to come to our new member class next Sunday, there's a sign-up sheet in the back.
Well,